Good evening. My name is Rashid Akil. I am the chair of the Citizens Review Board. At this time, the April 25th, 2023 meeting is now called to order. If you will, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now ask our meeting clerk, Ms. Tanya Wilcox, will you please conduct the roll call?
Banks, Collins, Tamayo,
Present.
Reyes,
Present.
Guy, Akil,
Present.
Inyadela, Valdez.
Let the record show that all members of the Citizens Review Board are present with the exception of Reverend Banks, Dr. Collins, and Devin Inyadela. At this time, I will ask my Vice Chair, Colonel Reyes, will you continue with the meeting guideline?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please silence all electronic devices. The duties and responsibilities of the Citizens Review Board are to review completed department investigations involving use of force and cases of importance and interest to the community or the city, determine whether the disposition of reviewed cases was consistent with department policies and procedures, review matters of importance or interest and make recommendations regarding the handling of these matters, determine whether any revisions or additions to department policy and procedures are appropriate in reviewing matters of or importance or interest, and report findings and recommendations to the Mayor and Chief of Police. Cases that are brought before the Citizens Review Board are closed internal affairs cases that have been investigated and brought to the police chief for disposition. It is the Citizens Review Board's job to review the cases and render an opinion as to whether the investigation was done according to department policies and procedures. The Citizens Review Board members are provided the investigative files in advance of the meeting. The Citizens Review Board will hear from the department whenever matters of interest or importance are requested for review by the board or the department. The coordinator for the board is Captain Patrick Mesmer. Any person who wishes to make a complaint concerning a matter which may be considered by the Professional Standards Bureau should see Captain Mesmer for information on how to file a complaint. And finally, the board should not discuss matters where the city or the department may likely be a party in litigation. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Colonel Reyes. We'll now continue with item 4, approval of the minutes from the meeting of March 28th, 2023. Are there any questions or provisions? Hearing none, I would need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
For the chair, he's kind of
Move
soft.
to
for
approve.
everybody
He's not
else.
speaking.
I understand. I tried to get him this
I
question.
know. Just keep telling him.
Board member Irene Guy had made a motion to approve the minutes for the March 28th, 2023. Board member Lincoln Tamayo has seconded the motion of approval of the minutes for the March 28th, 2023 meeting. Any further discussion? We will now continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raising hand. Any opposed, please show by raising hand. The motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 5, public comment. We have any participants for the public comment portion of this meeting? If so, please form a line here in front of this front podium. As you form that line, first one to that microphone, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Philip Freund, and my address is written on the sign-in sheet of paper. And I'm here to speak about the case number 2020-CF.000291 with Kelsey Storemski, and we want it to be reviewed in a more timely manner as 6 months is too long to investigate the case. And considering how long it's been that Kelsey has been demanding justice, that that the CRB should be able to review the case sooner. And if the purpose of the CRB is to enhance the trust between the community and those that it serves, then it would be crucial that they take heed of the demands being presented by the community in a timely manner. I believe that this case can and should be reviewed within the next few months and should take priority, since this is the first time the general Tampa community has come together to seek justice through the CRB. Thank you.
Thank you. Let the record show that City Councilman Louis Vieira is also present. If you will, please approach the podium. Please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sandra Zickery. My address is written in the sign-in sheet. Before I get timed, I am short. It's okay. Before I'm timed, I have attempted to contact the ADA coordinator to request additional time due to my disability. They have directed me to ask the chairman if I may have an additional minute or so. I have repeatedly asked for extensions in the past, with the reason being I have adhesive arachnoiditis and a cerebral spinal fluid leakage as a result of being assaulted by a doctor, in which these medical reports and documentation have been provided to you previously. Please keep in mind that I am in severe pain, and yet I continue to actively fight for my rights and my child's rights. I have resided nursing school. I have a degree in medical science and continuing education in biomedical science to go into law and medical school. I have lost a child as a result of this and may not be able to produce more babies because of this. So I'm requesting additional time because of my disability.
We as a board has extended public comment to you in numerous meetings, extending various time at that time. In today's meeting, you will be allowed the same 3 minutes as all of our other partners. Your time has already continued, so if I will, please continue, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and you are in a minute and a half of that privilege. Continue, please.
I contacted the disability offices about extended time, and they tried to reach out to you about extending the time, and they asked me to ask the chairman.
At this time, we will honor the 3 minutes allowed by all patrons. Please continue.
I have federal rights, but that's protected disability. That's insane. That's a federal violation. I have a disability. So I'm gonna continue, and I would like to have that honored because I have a disability. And I think that they tried to contact the legal team about it today. So that's really unacceptable. Okay.
Chair, would you ask her to speak into the microphone, because I can't hear anything she's saying.
If you will, please, if you can come closer to the microphone for our audio and recording,
Okay.
to allow board members to be able to comprehend what you're stating. Thank you.
Okay. Under the Standard of Procedures 641.2, Complaint Review Board, in cases involving multiple allegations against an officer and one allegation is to be submitted to the Complaint Review Board, the entire matter and all allegations shall be submitted and considered by the board. Police members who fail to take legal prescribed action when confronted with misconduct shall share the burden of guilt, and would include officers that fail to take action with reported misconduct. Last month, Internal Affairs detective admitted it was a policy violation that a detective disregarded various affidavits. All throughout the years, the TPD would promise investigation and would play games with false promises. Florida statute section 112.532, section 782.04, and section 943.05 requires law enforcement agencies to investigate allegations of criminal activity and to document any evidence that is discovered. If a detective ignores handwriting expert reports that report fraud, it violates my constitutional rights and due process and equal protection under the law. Detectives have a legal obligation to investigate allegations of fraud and to collect and consider all relevant evidence.
Excuse me, please draw to a conclusion. You have 30 seconds.
I haven't read any
Please
of it.
draw to a conclusion. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, we spent the half of the time. I've contacted your offices because I have a disability and I'm requesting that to be honored because I'm sick and I'm in pain. And they said that they're gonna contact you about it and they've asked me to request that. That's not fair to me.
I have not been contacted by any outside agency in reference
they
to extending your time for today's
I have
meeting.
the email.
Your time is adjourned. Thank you. Please have a seat.
No, I'm
Are
not,
there any
I'm
other
not going anywhere.
public comment
I'm gonna stand
participants
right
for this
here.
meeting?
You're violating my constitutional rights and my federal rights.
Hearing none, I would ask, are there any written public comments for this particular meeting? Okay, pass the microphone, please.
There are no written comments.
I will now ask the clerk, has she received any recorded comments for this particular meeting?
There are no recorded comments.
That will conclude public comment for this portion of the meeting. We will now continue with the agenda. Continuing with the agenda under staff and board response to public comment. I will now open the floor for our board members to respond to any of the public commentary that we received here today. I would share the gentleman that took advantage of being first in the public commentary. You mentioned the case of Kelsey Storinsky. On today's agenda, there is a presentation in reference to that. So stay tuned. That will conclude item 5, staff and board response to public comment. We will now continue with the agenda of item to be reviewed. Tonight, we are reviewing case 22F-003 SOP 538, response to resistance not sustained MOR 1603. Reporting response to resistance sustained, an officer was alleged to have used unnecessary force during an arrest. The allegation was not sustained. However, the officer failed to properly document his response to resistance when authoring his report. The officer received an oral admonishment. May I have a member of the Tampa Police Department to present this case? And please state your name and rank the department for the record.
No. Not for the PA.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you, Captain Patrick Mesmer, Tampa Police Department Professional Standards. So this case involved a arrest that occurred back on 4/8 of 2022. Officer George Clark, who was on our street anti-crime squad, he was riding as a passenger in a vehicle. His partner was driving. Other officers and our helicopters observed a vehicle traveling at a very high rate of speed in excess of 100 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic on Hillsborough Avenue. The helicopter directed our undercover vehicles into a position where they attempted a traffic stop on this vehicle. The vehicle subsequently fled the traffic stop, and the units did not pursue the vehicle. The helicopter maintained surveillance on the vehicle until it stopped and was abandoned. At that point, until it was stopped, officers attempted to box the vehicle in. The vehicle occupants fled. One officer chased the driver. Officer Clark began a foot pursuit of the passenger, at which time the passenger flees from him. The passenger does not comply with commands to stop and get on the ground. They end up jumping some fences, getting into the yard of a property, and at that point, Officer Clark, who's tried to tase him previously, the taser was ineffective. Officer Clark gives him more verbal commands, which he refuses to comply with, at which point Officer Clark approaches him and takes him to the ground. He continues not to comply with commands to show his hands and produce his hands, at which point Officer Clark punches him several times in the face in order to gain compliance. Eventually, other officers arrive. They are able to get the subject handcuffed. They search the subject. They find that the subject is carrying a firearm concealed, so he was charged with resisting violence, carrying concealed firearm. He subsequently pled guilty in court to that as well. This complaint came in from the jail. The defendant in the case made a complaint of excessive force at the jail. The sheriff's office referred that to us. When we looked at the report, we noticed that Officer Clark did not write a supplemental report, which is required by policy to do when you use force. So the force itself was documented on what's called a use of force detail page. That's just basically a statistical document that says what level of force was used. So that was there, but the actual narrative of him using the force and the reasons behind him using the force was not there. So that's why the case was opened. Subsequent to that, so kind of the way it works, when we use force like this, there's a mandatory supervisor review. So at the same time that we're opening up the case, Officer Clark's lieutenant and sergeant are also reviewing the case independent of us. They didn't know at that point that we had opened up an internal affairs case. So they noticed that he did not write that supplement. They order him to go and write a supplement, which he does complete. So at the time that he was interviewed in internal affairs, he did write that supplement. He just did not do it in compliance with policy. So what the captain and what the command staff sustained, they did not sustain the Standard Operating Procedure 538, which is response to resistance, but they did sustain a violation of MOR 1603, which is reporting response to resistance. The reason for that is because the Standard Operating Procedure, it does require that documentation to be made, but it does not actually give a specific timeline. The Manual of Regulation says that report has to be completed by the end of the shift. So since Officer Clark did not complete that required report by the end of the shift, the captain sustained that violation instead. And as a result of that, he was given an oral admonishment. And I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Captain Mesmer.
Yeah.
We'll now open the floor for any questions or statements or concerns for Captain Mesmer in reference to the case. If you will, Ligon Tamayo.
Captain, I'm sorry, could not hear very well. Did you state that the report, the narrative, needs to be written by the end of shift?
Correct.
Okay, and is that specific within the Manual of Regulation?
Correct.
By the end of shift. Okay, thank you very much. And it took him 11 days to amend the report, if I remember correctly from the...
Yeah, it was definitely quite some time after that when his supervisor saw it and ordered him to do it. It was nowhere near the end of the shift or even the same work week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question. I'm a little concerned about the taser. I've been tased before. That stops you. Was the taser not working properly?
So it's very difficult to tase somebody who's running. So the taser was not effective. So what I would imagine happened is one of the taser prongs hit him and the other one missed. And if you don't have, as you recall from the Citizens Academy, you have to have those two prongs, so there has to be that connection between the two. If it's only one of them, it's not going to give you that neuromuscular incapacitation. So in this case, that's what happened. He did not get hit with both prongs of the taser, so the taser just wasn't effective. There's no indication that it wasn't working properly. In the video, you can actually hear the taser cycling through the 5 seconds, so it just appears that the prong missed.
Thank you.
Officer Clark was riding with Rob, and according to what I was able to review in the case, they made an observation of the vehicle traveling on Hillsborough and was recognized as speeding. Was there any speeding device, or were there any probable cause to support the allegation of speeding to create that initial stop?
So from the report, what was written in the aviation unit, they had a very good view of the vehicle. Regardless of the actual speeding, the fact that it was weaving in and out of traffic, causing other vehicles to slam on the brakes, that would be enough to support a careless driving charge. Now, if this was something that would result in some sort of serious injuries or fatality, we could go back and look at the Air Service video, and we would be able to do a time distance calculation and specifically know how fast the vehicle was going, but that wasn't done. We can visually observe that a vehicle is going, especially in a case like this where it was estimated 100 miles an hour. We're not talking about 45 instead of 40, but you're talking about somebody who's just blowing the doors off any other vehicle on the road. It's obvious to anybody who's been trained in speed measurement that that's severely exceeding the speed limit. But that combined with the failure to maintain lane and weaving in and out of traffic and affecting other traffic would give probable cause for the traffic stop.
Thank you, Captain Messmer. Any other questions or comments or concerns in reference to this particular case to Captain Messmer? If you will, Carlos Valdez.
Quick question as it relates to the punches that were thrown. We do see on the video, and I appreciate you sending that out. It helped clear the scene for me. Can you talk a little bit about more or less how many punches were thrown? You do hear on the video a sound of gasping for air. At what point would determine that this can be maybe a case of excessive force, or that would have been something that would have been sustained? At what point will we be able to determine something of that nature, of that magnitude?
So I believe there were a total of, I believe it was 3 punches. It was either 3 or 4 punches. I think 3 is what the defendant said in his complaint, so I believe that's probably accurate. And when he was punching the defendant, he kept giving the defendant orders to give him his hand, and he wouldn't do that. Now, once he was able to grab the defendant's hand and get him into custody, at that point, any subsequent punches would have definitely been excessive force. But he's still trying to gain control of the hand, which at the time he didn't know, but in reality, that hand was on the firearm that he had concealed on his person. Whether or not he was going to pull that out or he was just trying to keep it in his waistband so it didn't come out, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think any of us do. But as long as he's still making a reasonable effort to overcome the resistance, then it would be justified. Now, if other officers arrived on the scene and they were able to each grab hands and then he still continued to punch him anyway, that would probably not be justified either. So when he's by himself, when the subject has already resisted by running, when he's already on the ground and he's refusing to give his hands to be handcuffed, that would be considered acceptable. But the moment that he becomes compliant and the punches or anything else would continue, that would be unreasonable and that would be excessive.
Thank you. And just to confirm, you could tell that the suspect was going back and forth with the officer, combative, so appreciate that explanation.
Yes, sir.
If you will, Colonel Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Captain Messmer, how you doing?
Good.
I've got a question about the disciplinary action taken, the oral admonishment. As part of our packet, I also saw that there's a history with the officer on past disciplinary situations. In all of those past situations, he received something in written form, whether it was a letter of counseling or written reprimand. But on this one, he received an oral admonishment. Can you kind of, to help the court or help the board, kind of better inform us on what are the standards and the level, the incremental level of disciplinary procedures that you take, and what kind of factors you take in consideration? And the reason why I mention that specifically is I'm looking at, I won't say there's a pattern, but I noted in here there's several other previous incidents where he had some issues. If you could just kind of address that.
Yeah, so the oral admonishment is the first step in formal discipline. So even though it's actually, I think you received the written oral admonishment in the packet. So there is written documentation of it, but still, it is the first step in discipline. So normally the totality of the circumstances and any previous discipline specifically related to that MOR or a related event would be taken into consideration. So I don't believe he had any prior discipline involving any kind of use of force, be it fail to document, or I know he had some traffic crashes. I think there were some other things. Let me see if I can pull that document up right here to look at it.
He moved again. He moved again.
Right, there was a vehicle crash that occurred back in 2017. There was another off-duty incident that occurred in 2017, and then a courtesy charge, and then another vehicle crash in 2020. So he didn't have any discipline specifically related to lack of documentation or anything, on the force spectrum. And I think too, in this case, the reason why it was an oral admonishment and not a letter of counseling was because, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a system in place to where these types of incidents automatically get reviewed by a supervisor. And in this case, the system worked in the sense that the supervisor caught the mistake and, ordered him to write the supplement. And in the original report, while he didn't write his narrative about what he did write the detail, we call it a detail page. It's the page that says, yes, I use my taser. Yes, I use punches. So he did document that he punched somebody and tased somebody. So it's not like he was trying to hide the fact that he used force. I think if that was the case, the discipline would have been a little bit higher if it looked like he was trying to hide the fact that he was using force. But in this case, he actually documented in that format that he used the force. He just didn't write out the complete narrative. And the sergeant caught it, ordered him to do it. So had Internal Affairs gotten the complaint 2 weeks later, this probably would not have been an Internal Affairs case. This probably would have been a case that we reviewed the body camera with the chief of police and the legal advisor and made a determination that based on the facts, the use of force was justified, and it didn't appear that there was any policy violation. So that's probably what goes into the low level of discipline in this case, is because it wasn't like he was trying to get out of reporting use of force. It was just that it was a little bit late in doing so, but the system that we have to catch incidents like this worked on its own.
Thanks for that explanation. So let me just kind of follow up on this again. Looking at the past record of previous violations that Officer Clark had, I guess my question is, when you have other reported instances of violations, what is the police policy with regard to, in addition to giving oral or written reprimands or counseling, is there any retraining or any kind of stand downs, if you will, where the force comes together and they review policies again and they kind of do that retraining? I'm just curious as to how the police department handles that.
Yes, and especially in a few instances, if there would ever be a sustained violation of use of force, if it was determined that his force was not justified, in addition to any discipline, assuming that it would not result in termination, there would be training provided for response to resistance and defensive tactics. So the mistake wouldn't be repeated again. In instances of traffic crashes, which is typical, that's going to be what you see in a lot of officers' disciplinary histories, is traffic crashes. If they have preventable traffic crashes, there is a procedure in place for them to get remedial driving training. If there's officers who have sustained violations with courtesy to the public, there's usually a training aspect to that as well. If the officer has something going on in their home life that's maybe causing them to lash out at people at work, there's also things that we can do to get that officer employee assistance, things of that nature as well. So regardless of what it is, if there is something that could be addressed with training, then training is also incorporated into discipline. You know, every once in a while we do have officers who have negligent discharges from their firearms. Regardless of the discipline, that always is associated with remedial firearms training. So just anything high liability like that, if somebody identified, in this case, I think he just forgot to do it. So it didn't really appear that there would be any reason to send him to remedial report writing training if his answer is, I just got busy that night and I forgot, and I should have done it, but I forgot to. I've done it before and we can see in other reports where he's done it. If you just forget, then maybe you don't need that training. But yes, we do have processes in place where training or employee assistance or other things can be incorporated into discipline as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let the record show Dr. Carolyn Collins is also present in today's meeting. Are there any other questions or comments or statements for Captain Messmer in reference to this case? Thank you, Captain Messmer.
Yes, sir.
I selected this case this month because I always share interest of BWC footage. I continue to support the BWC for clarity, for training, for investigative support, for safety, and for complaints. The chair is open to a motion on whether we concur or not concur or are unable to reach determination regarding the deposition of this case and its findings. Can I have a motion? Ms. Irene Guy has made a motion to concur with the deposition and its findings. Colonel Reyes has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed, please show by raise of hand. The motion passes. Thank you. We'll now continue with the agenda under item 8, Community and Town Police Department matters. Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Michael, if you will, please.
Maria Pettis-Michael from the Legal Department. There are no items under the Community and Tampa Police Department matters.
Mike Schmidt.
There's nothing for that item either.
That would conclude item 8. We will continue with item 9, CRB staff reports and business.
There's nothing, Mr. Chair, for that item.
We will continue with the agenda under items continued. Tonight we have a presentation from a member of Tampa Police Department in reference to the case matter of Kelsey Storisky of 21C-171 from October 24th, 2023 CRB public meeting.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, as it's notated on the agenda, that matter will be discussed at the October 24th, 2023 CRB public meeting. That's when that item will be addressed to the board.
Thank you for that clarification. We will now continue with announcements of new business. Before continuing, the annual report presentation of the CRB to City Council is scheduled for May 18th, 2023. I encourage all members of the CRB of availability to be present as I present the annual report to City Council. And again, if there are any concerns or statements or questions, please forward to Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Michael, and I will share your thoughts with the City Council on May 18th.
May 18, 2023. Our next meeting is scheduled on May 23rd, back at the old City Hall of 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602, at our regular schedule at 6 p.m. Before I adjourn this meeting, I would like to give an opportunity to our board members for any final statements or comments or concerns at this time. You will, Carlos Valdez.
Yeah, I just would like to say to Councilmember Luis, thank you for being here tonight. It is election night, so thank you to any council member that won't be with us come May, depending on the results, and we appreciate your professionalism and partnership in the work that we're doing. And I'm looking forward to building new relationships with future leaders and being able to work with them in this capacity, in this arena. So thank you.
If you will, Ms. Irene Guy.
I'll try to talk into the microphone this time. I just wanted to thank the Tampa Police Department for doing the front porch roll calls. It's showing up on Facebook. What I'd like, if I can get the information and show that there's a way to ask for these front porch roll calls, that I'd like to put it on Nextdoor. Because, you know, the Tampa Police Department gets a whole lot of recognition on Nextdoor, and I think this is, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. This would be a good thing to do to hand to the community and say, this is how you ask for a front porch roll call in your community.
If you will, Mike Schmidt.
Hey, just to clarify, you're asking for TPD to come back with a report on what we're doing with regards to the front porch roll calls, or?
No, what I would like is for the public to know better how to ask for it. And if you all can send us something, then we can share it with the community. I'm not asking for a report, just information how they can request it.
In addition, if you will, Dr. Carolyn Collins.
Due to my tardiness, I just wanted to ask a follow-up. Due to my tardiness, I wanted to ask a follow-up. Did we talk about the survey? Did I miss that? Did we discuss that? I had that for last month. Also, a question had been asked that the CRB find out if we could be involved in any way with the selection of the new police chief. And it was one other item. I probably missed that one. But I just wanted to know if they were not, if they could be forwarded to next month's meeting so that they don't be lost in the agenda. Oh, I know the other was the any update or reply from the state attorney. Those three items.
Are you with Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle?
That was a close one. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. I do not have an update regarding the CRB survey yet. I do not have, you asked about, I did have communication with the state attorney's office, and I will be able to provide the board an update regarding that before the next meeting. So I did communicate with the office, state attorney's office. But Dr. Collins, you had asked me about one more thing, the survey. I don't have an update about that and something else.
Survey, but the state attorney and the chief of police.
I do not have an update about the mayor's process yet about her selection for the chief of police, but your request was forwarded to her.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also would like to extend a courtesy out to our city councilman who's present tonight. If you like, you would like to say a few words to the board.
Tell them they're breaking the law and the state office is asking to see the evidence. Concealing evidence is is a crime, and they're violating
It's a
my constitutional
real pleasure to be
rights.
here, everybody, and just wanted to thank everybody. I see a lot of friends and whatnot, and just real pleasure to be here tonight. It's a kind of a quirky forum with air conditioned there, but we all just really thank you guys for all of y'all's hard work for the city of Tampa, because y'all occupy a really important role, and y'all do it really well with really good precision and temperament. So we just appreciate you guys. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
No honor, no respect. No honor, no respect.
Thank you. And that will adjourn tonight's meeting.